tells me why you're there. It doesn't tell me what you're going to do with your business. Okay, so you say, we're getting in virginal territory which no one else would dare to go to yet, but we've got the experience, track record, military and otherwise, to go in there and operate comfortably. I want to get to the bit where you tell me what you're going to do when you're there and how do you monetize it. What are you going to do for shareholders this year? So what are the moments that we should be looking out for? Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We're here today with Tim Coughlin, who's the CEO of Royal Road Minerals. How are you, Tim?
Good, Matt. How are you?
Not bad. So you're in London for a bit?
For the day.
For the day, right, okay. You're in Jersey.
Yep.
Live in Jersey, okay. So why don't you kick off and give us a 1 minute overview of the company and we'll take it from there.
Exploration company, proudly so. So what I mean by that is we might approach feasibility, but we'll rarely go beyond that.
Okay.
Into that valley of death, so to speak. I mean, we're opportunity driven. I think all companies have to be. We're in Colombia and Nicaragua. We're the largest license application tenement holder in both of those countries.
Yeah.
We're traditional old-fashioned boots on the ground exploration with a bit of a twist in regards to our focus on post-conflict environments, which is something we can talk about, I guess, later in detail. But we like to play a responsible part in the environments in which we operate. That sort of allows us to punch above our weight a little bit, at least with respect to governance and engagement with regulators. 3 projects that we would that have been drilled and are about to be advanced into sort of expansion drilling phase this year, and a large prospective exploration package, gold and copper.
Okay, so I think your share price has been appreciating modestly, but going up, and it's for an exploration company that's commendable. But there are a lot of South American gold stories coming and talking. So okay. And I want to understand what's different about you. So give me a sense of what it was that you set out to create. Mm-hmm. Maybe start with your experience, then talk about what you set out to create and why you're going to be able to deliver against the objectives that you're setting yourselves today. Right.
So we set out to create a large grassroots explorer with the value being in discovery. And so, and that's because, well, a little bit about background. So in terms of background, most of us we're a group of exploration geologists, ex-military people, ex-combatants, ex-FARC combatants. And we have this, I remember one colleague describing it as expeditionary warfare without the guns, but we have this particular strategy which is based almost entirely on discovery, so new assets. We're not in the acquisition and development game. We want to find something new and something big. That doesn't make us unique. There are a few companies around like that. I think what's a little bit different about us, and it's a realization, I guess, that I think we've made and perhaps others haven't, is that if you do dedicate yourself to exploration, then you're dedicating yourself to the future in the next 10 years' time. What I mean by that is if we find something tomorrow, or if these 3 projects that we're developing at the moment turn out to be ore deposits, and I should emphasize that we're looking for big ore deposits, then they have to be ore deposits that dovetail with the expectations of government, community, and the rest of the world in the next 10 years' time. So I'm making a short story long, but basically what that means is that we have a very, very strong ESG component, and more particularly so because we tend to, because of what we've done in the past, in the exploration environments which we've operated, we tend to focus on these post-conflict environments. And if I might just expand on that, the reason why, and again, it's I guess amplifying why I think
I guess obviously you see some value there. Not a lot of people do it or have the expertise, but at some point you're going to monetize all of this. So you're going in at that spot because you've worked out how to monetize it, you think?
Well, I mean, first of all, we're going to highly prospective regions. I mean, that's the key thing. Obviously, there's no point in not doing that. But they're troubled regions, and they're prospective and underexplored for that particular reason.
These have been troubled regions. You talked about FARC earlier, obviously, well documented. These are areas which have been under pressure, from wherever, fighting, infighting sometimes, and you're saying, well, things have settled down a bit. We feel we can come in here and have sensible conversations with the groups involved and do what we need to do with regards to geologically.
There's more of a sort of a higher level geopolitical strategy to it, if you like. So, many of these conflict regions, of which Colombia is obviously one, have the conflict evolves out of unrest, unsettled rural communities who feel they're not getting a fair share, and these countries are generally very centralized economically, and Colombia is a classic example. So within about, this isn't accurate, but within about a 4 or 5 square kilometre area of Bogota is about 60 to 70% of the country's GDP. So winding back the clock 50 years ago when this conflict first started, this is the sort of issue that, these are the sort of issues that drive people to internal conflict. And a point worth noting is that Colombia is second only to Syria in terms of internally displaced people. So, the effects are sort of rife. Now, the thing about resolving conflict, and one key aspect of it, is decentralizing these environments. Mining, although this should be better understood, but mining is a massive catalyst for decentralizing and resolving conflict in these rural communities, and assist you. Where else do you get an immediate, at least in regards to 5 to 10 years, $1 billion of valuation in the middle of nowhere, which brings in infrastructure, education, health, etc., etc. So that's the strategy bit. So, and I think that makes us, in answer to your first question, it makes us a little bit different to other companies, the other companies in South America.
But it tells me why you're there. It doesn't tell me what you're going to do with your business. Okay, so you say we're getting access to areas that no one else, virginal territory, which no one else would dare to go to yet, but we've got the experience, track record, military and otherwise, to go in there and operate comfortably. I want to get to the bit where you tell me what you're going to do when you're there and how do you monetize it.
Right, so we are there.
Great.
And we're in what's been described as the last bit of beachfront real estate in the Andes, which is by one of our brokers, bless him, which is the belt down to the Ecuador border. Now that was run as a paralegal system by the FARC for a very long period of time. So what are we going to do? We're in there. We're in that district. We know a bit of geology now. Is there are 2 belts jammed next to each other. There's a very high-grade gold belt, and there is a porphyry copper gold belt. And it's sort of geologically unique. In fact, I don't know too many places where that occurs. So, piece of real estate with a gold and a porphyry belt right next to each other. What do we do? So the porphyry belts for us, that's expensive exploration. And I said before, this isn't the only part of Colombia that we're working. We're in Nicaragua as well. That's joint venture fodder, if you like. The gold. Our largest shareholder is Agnico, and I think they expect us. We expect the company to be following up those gold assets ourselves. The model in regards to sort of the traditional junior exploration model is to try and get off the treadmill of equity financing as best as we can. There's a couple of ways that we're doing that. I'll stay in the same district. So within that particular district, where we're using a new law that was passed in Colombian legislation back in 2017, which allows us to formalize a lot of informal, illegal, whatever you want to call them, but informal gold mine operations.
Right. Artisanal.
Right. In exchange for that, we receive a 3% royalty in gold. Now, in one particular case, the case of the Gualtal project, that's significant because it's producing 65,000 ounces of artisanal gold a year. And we're currently formalising another 8 or 9. So that's sort of track 1 to get us off the sort of equity treadmill. Yeah. Track 2, joint ventures and asset sales, because we have this large land position. We had a large land position before, but then last year we purchased AngloGold Ashanti's exploration company, so they decided to focus on their development assets in Colombia. So we own all of their exploration assets.
Yeah.
And they have had a good 20 odd years of exploration development and prioritization. So we know within those assets where the targets are.
Yeah.
The issues are access. So the sort of stuff that we focus on. So social conflicts, etc. So within that whole package, we have the means of sustaining our business and financing it moving forward.
Okay, so let's come back. A lot of things you just said there, which is great. Agnico, they're an equity shareholder in the company. How did that come about?
Well, so they made a placement in the company early, let me see now, where are we? Early 2018, I think. And then made a bigger placement when we purchased. It cost us 8 million Canadian, so 5 million US, to purchase those AngloGold assets.
Right.
So they helped us purchase those. They made a bigger placement when
So what are they sitting on today then, Agnico?
19.8%.
Okay, meaningful. Yeah. Right. Who are the other big shareholders?
Well, the ones that I can tell you that report are Mackenzie Financial.
Right.
So Mackenzie, as you know, is a $132 billion Canadian pension fund.
Sitting on what, roughly?
Just under 6.8, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. And what are your market cap today? About 45?
Just over 50.
Just over 50?
Yeah.
So, and you've got some people you can't tell us who are in there. Are they, what sort of people are we talking about?
Well, I can't tell you, undisclosing
no names.
Funds. And
what sort of people are they?
So there are, we have a couple of hedge funds, a couple of small funds out of Canada.
Yeah.
Retail managed funds in the US.
Right.
Retail managed funds in Canada. A fund out of Switzerland and
right. Okay, so quite institutional for a company of your size.
Well, we're about, I think, sort of, if you want to call it free float, non-institutional.
Yeah.
About 65%, I'd say. So we're about 45% institutionally held.
Okay. And thanks for that. Right. So you mentioned something quite interesting there. I like the anti-dilutory mentality, first of all. That's interesting to me. And we've also got to get back to a bit more clarity on what the game plan is here. I get where you are and what you're looking for and what the opportunities are in terms of the ore bodies and the porphyry, etc. But you talked about putting together a royalty based on artisanal mining of some 65,000 ounces a year. That's not insignificant. How do you go about doing that? You're new to the country. You're not local.
We're not new to the country, so
okay.
I was first in Colombia in 2000. And also we have a formalization team which is not comprised of people who live in Jersey or Canada like me. It's comprised
right.
of
So how does that work?
Well, we don't know is the honest answer.
Okay.
There's a quarterly royalty to be paid in.
I like that.
It's a quarterly royalty to be paid in gold, a 3% royalty. Now we're working with those local miners in a way of having a warden that will manage that production. Bear in mind that they have to pay once a legal royalty to the government as well, so they are going to get government audits in respect of their production. But we're going to jointly fund a warden who will audit the production.
Right.
And we are physically paid gold. So most of these, thankfully in this particular district, most of these veins are very high grade, free gold, so it's gravity concentrated.
Right.
So we'll be paid in gold powder. Okay. And we have we're establishing a gold trading company which will sell that gold locally.
So this isn't in place yet? It's in the process of being set up?
It's in the process of being set up.
When do you start making money?
I would say end of the year.
End of the year?
Yeah.
In one lump sum, backdated for this year?
No.
Okay.
No, because the formalization process has worked. We signed an agreement with the local miners. The first one, the Gualtal agreement, which is that 65,000 ounce that you're referring to, back last year. We then had to wait for the new Colombian cadastre, which is basically a new rectilinear cadastre to adjust the areas. We've just done that. Then the process will go over to the mining agency in Colombia for them to manage and then complete, and with respect of essentially devolving an area of our license to these local miners, so it becomes theirs. And then at some point after that, when that's all clear and done and they've got their permits, we'll get paid our royalty.
Okay.
So I mean, you can't collect a royalty off an illegal operation, so it has to go through the whole paperwork.
I just want to ask a bit, because it's very interesting in timing, because some companies kind of talk about stuff and it hasn't happened yet, so you're very, very clear about that, and that's fine. What are you sitting on with regards to the land package? Because you're talking about these potential JV farm outs or sale of some of your land package, but what have you got at the moment? You've done no real work on it, so you don't, I'm trying to think, what type of farm out are you going to be doing? And how far are you away from actually realizing any money from that? Do people make upfront payments, or is it based on success? Or how are you structuring it?
So I'll start in Nicaragua.
Okay.
And so I'll take you to point on this.
Take me north.
Well, and also not doing any work. We drilled 2 projects there last year, 2 new discoveries.
Okay, but how much work have you done, really?
Well, we've spent, in terms of about 1.4 million US in Nicaragua. We've drilled 2 projects, early stage, so they're new, but they're discoveries, right?
Okay.
They're new projects.
Okay.
And we're doing expansion drilling in this next year. Now, Nicaragua's a joint venture with a group called Mineros, which is actually a Colombian company. It's a 50-50 JV.
Meaning, what, are you carried at all for any of this?
No, it's a straight 50-50 JV.
Okay, so what's their balance sheet look like?
You'd have to ask them. They're publicly listed, so they're listed on the Bogota Stock Exchange.
Right. Are they going to have the money to do what they tell you they're going to do?
Oh, absolutely. They're a gold producer. They're the second largest gold producer in Colombia.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a 50-50 JV. We're moving on to expansion drilling in Nicaragua. In Colombia, in terms of what we have, and in terms of these, the initial kind of joint venture payments, we just signed a deal with Mineros on a gold asset called Guinta Nivarengo, which is in northern Colombia, not the environment that we've just been talking about with the porphyries and gold occurrences. That deal requires Mineros to pay us $1 million US up front, and then put $2.5 million into the ground to get the 50%.
Excellent.
And that's a straight 50-50 deal, like the one we're doing in Nicaragua with those guys. In terms of other JVs, we're still getting around. We've got 2 blocks, which we call the northern block and the southern block. The southern block we've sort of been talking around with the porphyries and the gold belt and the formalization. The northern block incorporates 3 exploration titles, 2 of which were joint venture with Mineros. The other we've only just visited a couple of weeks ago. We want to get our teeth around that ourselves before we put that out to JV. And we'll consider a JV on the entire northern block, but we want to get around it ourselves first. We just bought that off Anglo last year.
Right.
In the southern block, we're bouncing around ideas with various companies in respect of an airborne geophysical survey, because we think that's what that environment needs, which would earn them, and some cash up front, which would earn them some interest in the porphyry exploration program that we're planning down there. Porphyries are expensive for small companies to explore.
For sure. Who else are you talking to? Do you think you can get more money in the coffers to allow you to do what you want to do?
Well, I can't say who else we're talking to, because
are you talking to people?
Yes, we are, yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah. And how long have those conversations been happening for?
About 6 or 7 months.
Right, okay. So you must have some idea. They're still at the table.
So they're still at the table, yeah. I think there's, I know. So a lot of these guys are waiting for us, and in fact probably the whole exploration community in Colombia, to prove that we can get access to, it's difficult without being able to point at a map, but access to a known porphyry copper gold district on the border with Ecuador, which is literally 25-30 kilometers north of Solgold's Cascabel.
Right.
It's a complex area, not just because of the conflict, also indigenous communities in there. So we've been working
But that comes back to my earlier question, which was, what do you know? Because it's all fairly early stage. Okay, you spent 1.4 million up here, and I don't know what you spent down in Colombia. It's not a lot of money, really. Okay, it's early days, so you don't have enough data to be able to negotiate as hard as you want to. So how much cash are you sitting on today, for instance?
About $3 million.
$3 million, okay. And your plans for that are what? Are you going to more drilling? Is that the
Yeah,
idea?
we've got 50% of the drill bill in Nicaragua this year.
Right.
Mineros will be drilling for us at Winter Niverengo in Colombia.
Right.
And the rest is essentially focused on getting us access into these areas,
right.
Particularly the one on the Ecuador border.
So again, coming back to that anti-dilutory comment of yours from earlier, you're going, you don't, quite right, you don't want to dilute shareholders, fantastic, but you're going to have to raise some more money this year, aren't you, to be able to do the things you need to do to be able to further the conversations you're having?
Have to, no.
Okay.
I mean, that depends on all the deals that we've just been discussing and where we get to.
And the timing.
My focus, you may have noticed in an announcement just recently that one of our directors has moved on to the role of COO. He's going to look after a lot of the stuff that I was trying to do as well as everything else. Whereas I'm moving on to sort of consummating some of these deals, bringing them to fruition. So we don't know. We've got to. There's a few things that, including the royalties that we need to, and the real royalties, that we need to follow up and push along towards the end.
So you've got basically what it sounds like. There's lots of options on the table. Some further advanced than others, like conversations, current JVs, and potential JVs. Potentiality of the royalty component and nailing that down by the end of the year.
Yep.
Right. So these are all good, and maybe some other farm outs licensing to bring some upfront cash in. I get that, but you are going to have to make some decisions soon as to how much money you need to bring in to build this thing out at some pace, don't you? I mean, you're going to miss this cycle if you don't.
Are you saying we should be opportunity driven, and if a window opens, jump through it?
I'm asking you to explain to me where your head's at the moment, because there's a lot of choice on the table, which can be distracting as well as exciting.
So at the moment, the program that we've discussed is budgeted for, settled and done.
Okay, good.
Okay, so unless something else arises or something goes fatally wrong, we're okay.
You're good. Okay.
There's one issue that before the camera started rolling that we discussed that we're trying to tackle is a shareholder register. It's deep, but it needs to be broader. So that that's something we would need to.
Meaning what? What are you looking for? Broader retail?
So we've had a lot of support from a handful of good old faithful, trusting and shareholders, for which we're very grateful. But now is the point, not just retail, but also institutional, to spread the story a bit wider. Also because we're post drilling. It's time to start talking. We think we've got two discoveries, particularly in Nicaragua, Luna Roja and Caribe. We are moving Luna Roja to resource stage. That moves us up to the next step. So it's time to start introducing the story to a broader market, and then perhaps trigger some more in-depth type of marketing once we've got a resource.
Right, okay. And yet, this resource in Nicaragua, are you going to just start with a small resource just to get something on the table, or are you going to wait till you've got something more meaningful?
Well, you've always got to be careful starting with a small resource and claiming you have it on the table.
You get labelled, or mislabelled.
Exactly. So, no, we'd rather get something meaningful in inferred categories. So, sort of stretch it out a bit. And
what do you think that needs to look like in terms of a number
it's
to
sort of
be noticed?
Okay, so for a company we have Agnico as the largest shareholder and Mackenzie Financial. Something less than 1 million ounces is a little bit ridiculous. So it's got to look north of that.
Agreed.
And there's got to be a very clear argument for the fact that it's going to get bigger.
Right. Okay. And these are they're kind of not low grade, but they are. They're lower grade territories, aren't they?
So 2.5, 3 grams.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not 0.3. Fair point, but it's not 10 grams either, right? So okay, so the ones
in Nicaragua you're talking about,
yeah. So I'm just trying to again paint a picture for people to understand the type of mine this could be. I think you said earlier that you're not necessarily looking to get into mining yourself, but you're project developer and bring this through for someone else to take on the mantle and move on, and hopefully retain a piece of that. That's the plan.
Yeah, retaining a piece of it is a crucial part of the plan. if you're going to commit to exploration like we have,
yeah,
and that is our strength. Just making discoveries that we think is our strength.
Right.
Then financing yourself to do that is really the challenge. And financing risk is our biggest risk always as an exploration company.
Right.
So retaining an interest is crucial for us.
Right. Okay. So tell me a bit about what the team in country is actually doing on a day-to-day basis, because there's a lot of movement. You talked about the CSG component here, and some people don't like to label it that, but you've got to get on with people in country, not just because it was formerly a difficult area for anyone to do business, but because you need the indigenous people to be behind what you're doing.
Correct.
You're hoping to bring money and jobs, etc., into the area, but you've got to do it in the right way as well.
Yep.
So what's happening in country?
Right. So let's go. We'll move back down to the crucial area, and then which is down on that. But in terms of that ESG risk,
yeah,
which is the border region, this Nariño region,
yeah,
the border with Ecuador. So we're quite proud that we've just employed 3 ex-FARC combatants full-time for us. So they played a fairly high-level role in the FARC's command and control structure down in that particular district.
Right.
So they're assisting us not just with the social work, but also with day-to-day exploration work. We have some. We have a sort of locally qualified sort of social leader down there who's moving us forward. The formalization program has been highly beneficial in terms of a material illustration of good faith in terms of what we are as a company. The agreement that we employ those ex-combatants under is an agreement we have with an ex-FARC cooperative called ECOMUN. Under the terms of that agreement, we're committed to IFC performance standards and Equator principles, etc., and some very high-browed kind of social initiatives. So we have a team doing nothing but that down in the south.
Yeah.
The formalization team, which we'll just finalise, we have the lawyer in place, the formalization manager we're just employing. Their job will be getting those formalization projects in place and hopefully getting some royalty and some cash flow by the end of the year. In the meantime, our exploration team in the south are exploring around those projects that we're formalizing. One point I should make is that in all cases with that formalization program, we retain the right to earn back in to the parts of the title that we're giving these informal miners. So we have an exploration program that will focus on Gualtal to set that up for drilling. So that's a high grade vein system, 65,000 ounces of informal production. That's the south. In the north, we are finalising the definitive agreement with Mineros to get the drilling going at Guinta Niverengo. So there's a team working on that. We have a reconnaissance team working. In Nicaragua, we're just finishing geophysical programs at the Luna Roca and Caribe discoveries and setting up for drilling there in the next 2 or 3 months or so.
Interesting. Who's the mining guy? Who's the geologist?
We're all so I'm a geologist.
Okay, but in country, do you spend a lot of time there?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time there.
How much?
40% of my time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you doing anything else at the moment? Any other companies you're working with?
No.
So you're focused on this?
Utterly focused,
And
how can you run these companies without being focused?
You'd be surprised. Well, I say run. Pretend to run. And what does that mean in terms of your commitment? How much money have you put into this yourself? Your money?
In total, since we started,
yeah,
about 2 million Canadian.
Okay, so it's meaningful.
Yeah.
So you need this to work.
I need this to work.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And the same with the rest of the management team. They're in this.
So everybody's in it. Yeah, of
right.
course. So Peter Mullins, our chairman, was a co-founder with me. In answer to who's doing the day-to-day stuff, I mentioned Vern before.
Yeah.
So he's our COO in country recently, which is allowing me.
But that seems more around and I do not underestimate the complexity of it in terms of managing people and time and resources and making sure everyone gets on. Okay, I get that. You sound very competent and knowledgeable, and I get that. But I'm saying, who day to day is looking at where you're targeting, who's drilling, the geology. He's on the ground looking at the geology as well, not just doing admin.
Correct, Vern. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And plus we have a chief geologist, but basically Vern, CEO, pretty much all operating reporting lines go straight up to him.
Right. He's boots on the ground, literally.
He's boots on the ground, yeah.
Literally, okay. And okay, so you said that you've put some money into this thing. You need this thing to work. What are you going to do for shareholders this year? So what are the moments that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, I think what's crucial for shareholders this year is, I think, resource at the end of the year.
Right, give us a big number.
I think that's sort of, yeah,
over $1 million.
And I think that sort of obviously it re-rates us, it puts us into a different, and it's something that it's taken a long time for us to get here because of the model we're deploying, which is it's firm sort of ESG.
So end of the year
focus.
Resource.
End of the year resource.
Over $1 million, hopefully.
Yeah. So in terms of immediate catalysts, then we've got the drilling starting in Nicaragua and in Colombia.
How many drills?
There'll be one drill in each country.
Okay.
Then our access, obviously, to that porphyry district, advances on the Gualtal high grade, so drill preparation for that. That's, that thing averages an ounce. It's shallow dipping, 3 levels, as we know, stacked shallow dipping veins until we drill it. We might find more.
Okay.
Averaging around about 50, 60 centimeters wide, running an ounce, but obviously, with some much more spectacular grades than that. So we'll set that up for drilling. There's lots happening this year. It's a very, very busy year.
And you're going to spend some time, money and effort telling people?
We're going to spend some time, money and effort telling people, yes.
Great first introduction. Thanks very much for your time today. There's always a danger that these conversations become yet another small South American exploration story, and it's very difficult to differentiate one from the other. So I appreciate the time you spent today to help us differentiate you.
My pleasure. Our big challenge, differentiation.